In compliance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, entitled Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this public meeting was provided in a notice of January 8, 2018. Said notice was posted at the entrance of the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, advertised in the Nutley Sun and Star Ledger on January 18, 2018, posted on the district website. This is an official meeting. We have the flag salute, please. Everyone stand.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Kaduza.
Mr. Gaspar.
Here.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin. Here. Mr. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Klein. Here. Mr. Kaczynski.
Here.
Ms. Russo. Here. Mr. Scalera. Ms. Sherman. Here. Mr. Carnicello.
Here. Any correspondence this evening? Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. All right, we're going to move over to our one presentation for this evening. Dr. Blake, you want to introduce?
Sure. Tonight, we're going to have the first of several presentations related to our achievement data. Kent Bania and Janine Loconsolo, our directors of curriculum pre-K-12, have collected the information and they've analyzed it in a way to present to you and the community this evening. I think you're going to be very pleased when you see the data. I know that when I saw the presentation, I was pleased. And I just have a couple of comments before we have them come up to actually present. I think it's really important to note that everything that they're presenting tonight is factual evidence of student progress in our district year over year. Very often we hear or see in social media, the district's gone down, our rankings have gone down. This is in fact untrue. And I'm really pleased that we're able to provide you with the actual numbers from the state to be able to give you a true picture of our students' progress over time. This is a direct reflection of implementing our district strategic plan goals, our district and Board of Education goals over the last 5 years, and a true commitment to staff professional learning to continue to inform instruction, as well as a commitment by all of our staff, pre-K to 12, to personalize instruction for our students. This is not a small task, this is not an easy task, and you're going to see that this growth is clearly delineated in each of the charts that Kent and Janine are going to present. I also feel like I need to say, because we discount the rankings often. So while the various rankings don't have a lot of meaning to me, since the criteria is always changing, the Nutley Public Schools have consistently recorded a positive trajectory since the first academic report that I did in 2016. And while we continue to improve the rigor of our curriculum, the accessibility to advanced placement courses and technology, which are all elements of the rankings, we do continue to be challenged by ever-increasing class size, by educational space that was never intended as instructional space, and having to overcome a large lack of planning for programs such as full-day kindergarten and pre-K, as well as our special education programs like our ABA programs. These programs were brought to the district very well intended, and they're programs we're proud of, programs we're thrilled to have, but there was no plan for sustainability, and by that I do mean there was no long-range look at space or budget sustainability when these programs were brought in. So as proud as we are to have them, honestly, we're most grateful for Special Services Director Mrs. Doyle Marino, Special Services Supervisor Mrs. Vidiello, their constant battle and in collaboration with the principals, business administration, special educators, and classroom teachers, they continually provide the very best possible education to each of our children. Our challenges with the shrinking schoolhouse, we've heard us say that over and over again, and the lack of planning for those programs at the outset has more to do with compromising our ability to grow even more quickly than we would like to in the rankings than we have. So again, you're going to hear from Kent and Janine, and although the evidence bears out our continued success across the board, Kent and Janine are also going to provide some additional information regarding our areas of growth and some of our areas of challenge. So This time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Campagna, Director of Curriculum grades 6 to 12, and Mrs. Janine Molconsolo, the Director of Curriculum pre-K to 5. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Dr. Glazer. We'd like to thank you, Ms. Yeamans, and all the board for the support over the years of the strategic planning we've done in the district, especially all the teachers as well here tonight. Thank you for your contribution to what we do. We appreciate all of your efforts. This is all of our data tonight we're presenting, right? It's one measure the state has to give us feedback. We have student performance reports, which we present. We also have our QSAC, which we went through last year, as well as our school reports that come out midwinter, which we'll present as well. So this is one of the 3 ways the state has to give us feedback as to how our students are doing and how we're growing. So we do appreciate the time to show you the data as we've analyzed and started processing the data. Just to share with you on our district website, I do have a little pointer, so please bear with me. I don't even know if it's working. Yeah? Okay. So on this district offices, if you go on curriculum instruction, we are trying to build a website and use our website more to share with you where this data can be found. Like I said, this is all of our data, so you have access to it, the community has access to it, and it's released for public use, right? So this is our webpage, which we had a lot of last year things we'll continue to post up here, but we also put up here district goal number 1, and we'd like to just go through that goal to lead us to the data presentation. Together, we value data impacting and driving instruction, monitoring our curriculum, new programs, and scheduling to move forward. So looking at this data, we hope it impacts those things as we support district goal number 1 throughout the year. Ways in which you can do that as well is use the data, reflect on it, think about it. We challenge our admin team to do the same. This data, along with evidence statements, which have just been released, will lead us, those help us understand standards in this testing, will allow us to understand where our growth areas could be and where we can move students. So Ian, if you can click on that, we'd appreciate it. So we'd like to present this data to you, and we encourage you, and we ask you to start conversations based on the data, grounded in data. We encourage you to analyze it, provide feedback to us, find things we haven't seen. We encourage you to use it when making educational decisions, which is really important, in the classroom and big picture. So to get started, we just want to remind you, I think I can do this now, good, that we are constantly in a continuous improvement cycle. And if you look at these types of cycles, you'll find them in most every profession, no different than education. You found a simple one, but there are very many steps to it. But it's a feedback loop. It's a process where we constantly assess and evaluate, and teachers do that all the time in the classroom. And then we break down the results of that assessment, whether it be a formative or informative assessment. We take a look at how things are going. From there, we develop a plan to grow the areas needed and put that plan into effect, and then we assess again. And this always happens. This will never stop, right? We'll always take a look at how we're doing and how to make it better. So that's where we are at this first stage here. We're in the process of analyzing and understanding. Our admin team started that at our admin retreat. Just trying to tell you were there for part of that. And we're constantly planning different things. Please keep in mind that for some complex data trends, it is not a yearly fix. It's a multiple year. Sometimes it's a big boulder you have to move little boulders down the road. So different stages, different areas of data sets, we're at different points along the process. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so assessment, as you can see here, is really part of the cycle of teaching and learning. So if you look at the top left corner here where we start with the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, right? We study the standards, we have a 5-year curriculum cycle that I know you're all aware of, where we look every 5 years at different curriculum and align it to standards. Once that curriculum is written, then we start looking at the actual instruction that's going on in the classroom. So although today we're focusing mostly on the assessment piece of it, and then we're going to end kind of with the reflection of what some of this assessment tells us, we just want to put it in the context of this is part of the larger teaching and learning cycle that goes on here in district, and it shouldn't be seen in isolation as this is really just one piece of data. Okay, so before I get into the actual grade by grade PARCC results, I just wanted to go over very quickly a review of the PARCC requirements. So all students in New Jersey who are in grades 3 through 11 take the ELA PARCC or a Math, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 PARCC. And out of that comes scores that are based on performance levels that PARCC put out. So students receive a score anywhere from 650 to 850, and the results come back based on a level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I show this to you also because in the rest of the presentation, these colors match the charts that you're about to see. So when you see a graph with blue, that would be a level 5 exceeded expectations. Level 4 would be in green under met expectations. Level 3 approached expectations. Level 2 partially met expectations. And level 1 did not meet expectations. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at some ELA elementary data. I think just to give you some context, last year ELA went into the pilot year of curriculum revisions. So the year before it had undergone program review, and last year teachers were given a draft curriculum to work off of. We used some new curriculum materials, we introduced some unit of study resources, and we really supported teachers with some professional learning to help kind of unpack those units of study as well. A little something that we did differently this year is you'll see in the purple box, we boxed out Nutley because we know kind of all the columns can be overwhelming. But I'll just go through them before we start. This here is the PARCC averages. This would be the state, this is New Jersey, Nutley, and then we go to each of the elementary schools, Lincoln, Radcliffe, Spring Garden, Washington, and Nanticoke. In general, I'll talk about the Nutley scores, but I'll also point out some interesting things that we see in different schools as well. So here you'll see for grade 3 ELA, we had an increase overall in exceeding and meeting expectations, and a decrease here in not meeting expectations. We did see a little bit of a dip here in exceeding expectations, but overall, the percentage of meeting or exceeding continued to grow there. For grade 4 ELA, you'll see similar trends here, but look at this increase here in exceeding expectations. A nice increase there. And we're still, as you can see above, the PARCC continuum averages and the states. For grade 5 ELA, you'll see a trend here where year after year we continue to increase in either meeting or exceeding, and a nice increase here in exceeding expectations. Another thing to pay attention to is at the bottom where you see the red decreasing. So we're just as proud when we see students not meeting standards continue to decrease as these numbers increase. Another interesting thing just to point out is last year we worked a lot with our SCIP teams. They're teams in the building that help develop school-based goals. So one of our buildings, Washington, had a goal around writing. They did a lot of cross-grade level writing professional learning activities and actually had the students working together across grade levels. And we saw a really nice increase here in Washington School. And you can't see the breakdown of reading and writing particularly. This is all ELA combined, but specifically in the area of writing, we saw a nice increase there. That's helpful for us because we do put a lot of energy into turning over goal setting to the buildings. We want them to kind of own their own assessment data and to drive their own change based on what their specific students need. So this was encouraging for us. Okay, the next slides are now going to focus on 3, 4, 5 math. So just to give you the background on where we were last year in math, we had a program review. So that was year 4 of the 5-year cycle for math. We had surveys given out. We brought in an external consultant. We looked really closely at the current math curriculum and the standards. And so we spent a lot of time last year, especially with the help of Leanne Martin, our coordinator of mathematics. She spent a lot of time leading that effort. So the nice thing is this data can also support some of the pilot curriculum that she's doing this year. So if you look here, grade 3 math, you'll see here an increase in exceeding expectations and meeting. And here you'll see a very slight increase in not meeting. So that's another area that we may look to address moving forward. Specifically this year, Leanne Martin is working with our teachers on lesson study, which is a professional learning model that focuses specifically on how to address the needs of diverse and struggling students. So we're hoping that this can maybe be addressed that way as well. Grade 4, you'll see here a slight decrease here in exceeding expectations and sort of consistent with a little bit of a dip here as well, but a nice decrease in not meeting standards. And grade 5, a really nice increase here in exceeding expectations. Meeting or exceeding is another increase. And you'll see again, across all three of the math, we're always above the state and above the park averages here. Make sure I don't miss anything. This last slide just looks at a little bit of a different way to see some of this data. This is a cohort analysis. We chose to use 6th grade here because we want to really track the same students over time. So this graph here shows us the current 6th grade, but you'll see last year as 5th graders, the year before in 16-17 as 4th, and then as 3rd graders. So this is helpful because the data that you just saw in these charts is comparing the same grade level, but we know that those students change over time. So this is actually looking at the same students and how they did specifically here in ELA and math as 3rd graders, as 4th graders, and as 5th graders. Now, of course, the standards change as the grade level increases, the teachers change, a lot of other variables are at play, but this is another way that we can look at data as well. So we'll see here, in general, a pretty straight trend as far as increasing, exceeding, or meeting expectations with a slight dip here. Interestingly, there's another dip very similar if you look at the state scores. So it's always interesting to see if everybody who took that same test in a given time had a similar result or a similar pattern. And a decrease here in not meeting expectations.
So to look at 6th grade, we follow the same trend where we have a gradual increase, where we're actually at 10 percentage points proficient plus 4s and 5s. When you take this line and look at the state and the park consortium, that's an interesting comparative tool there. But also to look at the 6th grade, understanding that at Ratcliffe School, we call it a teaming model, you see a different trend here. You see Ratcliffe School going through amazing growth, over 90% proficient plus at Ratcliffe School. You see the trend going the other way and then being reversed at Ratcliffe School. This data supports some of the philosophies surrounding compartmentalizing that we piloted last year at Ratcliffe School. Teachers involved, everyone involved, did an amazing job in something that was new and different, and this risk paid off for the students in student performance. Knowing that information, we are looking to expand that model, and it is a not perfect model as we have to deal with different schools and different capabilities, but we look to expand the philosophies we use at Ratcliffe School to other buildings, and we're doing so this year. Same trend can also be seen in 6th grade math. On my pointer here, if you look at Ratcliffe School, one of the amazing things that stands out is the 1s went away. So the students, nobody scored a 1 at Ratcliffe School last year, and district-wide we are still undergoing that growth, which if you compare us to New Jersey and to the park, we're 20 to 30 percentage points improved from there. You'll see growth continuing in other district buildings as well, and the questions really come to us, what information supports these trends? How do we quantify them? And how do we find things to reproduce good things and eliminate the other things? And that's where we are. In ELA, we also see a trend of growth. Isn't that so? It shifts a little bit. Instead of only elementary schools, the John Walker Middle School data is the Nutley data. So you see that in purple here. You'll see, and I'm sorry I have my back to some people. You'll see this trend growing here in 7th grade. So really, you see the same thing in math as well. In 7th grade, understanding that in 7th grade math, the first of the algebra students will be pulled out of this data set and be put in algebra 1, right? So in math, we start, moving students in a different path, and you start seeing those students leaving this data set, which is new. So you have to take that in context when looking at math data from here on up, right? That every year more students are being pulled out or directed a different way based on their path, right? So in 8th grade ELA, you see a data set. This has kind of stayed consistent. You see a little drop there, but Proficient Plus has kind of stayed the same. Again, when compared to New Jersey and the PARC continuum, higher performing. But in math, right, you see a little bit of growth, very little bit of growth, but you have to understand that in 8th grade, about 1/3 of our students, either in algebra or geometry, they took algebra in 7th grade, now they're in geometry, so they will be seen in those data sets when that data comes up. So it's a little different understanding. Which is why we did not choose to provide a math cohort analysis, because the path is different for students and it wouldn't be an accurate comparison of data. But we did provide an ELA cohort analysis. And again, as Janine was saying, this is students moving with different standards, different assessments as they age out, but the students are the same. It's just another way to look at data. There's all different ways to look at the data we're presenting, and we chose to be consistent with the ways we present over the years. When we get to the high school, this was an area of focus from last year, our Algebra 1 scores. And Algebra 1 is now a graduation requirement for students, right, that are going through the high school. If they take Algebra 1 in middle school, it counts as a graduation requirement, or the high school. So this is an important data set for everybody in the state. There's much discussion about Algebra 1. We did a couple things differently. I was mentioning how some of these things are yearly things, and some of these things take longer times to do. We did a couple yearly things last year, and we saw growth in the district, and we saw growth of Proficient Plus in Nutley High School, with still an amazing amount of students not meeting that mark. We have a plan for them as well. We're starting a remediation program in November. We allocate funds. We have resources. We're going to put those students through another Algebra 1 course, right? We did scheduling, and they will take the PARC again, as it is a graduation requirement, right? So this will happen starting in November, and that is what most districts are doing with students who do not pass the Algebra 1 assessment. If you can see, our middle school numbers are kind of maintaining the same way. Geometry, very similar. If you take geometry in John Walker Middle School, we're 4 or 5 last year, right, in geometry. This is a small population of students that take this in middle school. You can see overall, and this is very consistent with the state and with the PARC continuum as well. Algebra 2, again, you see very similar data sets, a little bit of growth in Algebra 2. Moving to the ELA side of things, you see the same consistency, the 5s, growth on the 4s, Proficient Plus. Kind of going back and forth, but again, you look at the state, and you look at where the PARC is in comparison. 10th grade, very similar. This is an important data set to look at for the future, because as of next year, students must pass the ELA 10 PARC to graduate from high school. So this is something, this will be an area of focus for us, as it will be for many districts moving this year. We hope to provide not only that remediation program, which is somewhat reactive, but also proactive programs, like we did last year for Algebra 1, in Algebra 1 and the ELA 10. ELA 11, very similar data sets. AP. Our AP data has been an area of focus from last year. Looking at last year's presentation, this is an area where we want to grow as a district. And if you take a look at last year to this year, we're at 71%, 3+, 77%. This has been an ongoing discussion for years about how to generate interest, culture scores, all the above in our AP program. And I think that's one of a larger discussion where we need to look at things like culture of that program. We need to look at enrollment. We need to look at especially courses leading into AP to make sure that's supported. And I don't know if this is a quick thing. This is something where we want to take a look at steps over the years to address this problem. One thing we did last year, which is showing its effect this year, is we required students to sit in the class to take the AP exam. And we didn't know actually we had some ideas how this would impact enrollment and things of that nature. I'm happy to say that our enrollment is pretty much the same. And last year, this many students that were sitting in an AP class, this is how many students took an AP test, that's how many tests they took. Right now, we have everyone sitting, we did not have to disenroll any student. They all signed up for the AP exam, believe it or not. And we're taking 415 AP exams. I think that will allow us to have a common goal in the classroom. And I'm hoping that from this, a culture more consistent with the AP classes will evolve and show results over time. I'm concerned, and I want to make sure that as we grow into this, we provide the necessary steps to prepare students for that culture and to get them ready for these higher level courses. So I believe that's more in the 2 to 3 year approach, where we develop the programming and the ways to support the skills and the habits needed in those classes. But I'm happy to see that we can start aligning our focus in those courses for success in the AP program. Just so you know, ACT data and SAT data was not available at this time. That's consistent across the state. They do not have the data available yet for release. We believe it has to do with the August administration of these tests. They added administration and they get the data analysis to us. So we will present that when it becomes available. So next steps, back to the cycle. We're interpreting, analyzing, understanding different data sets that are coming to us. We're looking for trends related to standards. We're trying to find a plan for growth in the identified areas. Looking at the areas of focus moving into next year, it's going to continue to be our AP programming, right? It's going to continue to be 6th grade as we analyze and understand the data that expanding that pilot has. It's going to be different areas, SATs. Haven't seen the data this year, but I imagine that was an area of focus for last year. We're going to continue to move that data to those data sets as well.
Okay, this last slide just focuses a little bit on the parent reports that we're going to be sending out this week. We kind of put on there that you'll be receiving them at home by October 10th, but really probably sooner than that. That's just being a little conservative. You'll see that when the reports come home, you'll have an ELA report and a math report. Maybe I can just show you a few little key features, and these haven't changed from last year, but you can see here, it gives you your child's score, it gives you the 5-level continuum, exactly where your child fell. It also goes through, for ELA, breaking down the reading and writing scores. And I know it's very hard to read this, but it also gives you a school average, a district average, and a state average, which can be helpful. If you click up here on Understand the Score, do you mind bringing it? It'll open a website that has a lot of great resources for parents who want to learn more about the CART testing and really just supporting your child in general, really, in academics. If you go up here and click on Score Report Guide, you're able then to select ELA or math, and if you just scroll down, it'll actually take you through like step 1, step 2, and it'll highlight the different parts of the report. Step 3, score graph, and it'll give in more detail. Step 4, score breakdown, what each of these things means with more information. The other thing I love about this site, Ian, if you don't mind scrolling up and just going to Help Your Child, resources for parents. I know a lot of times, presentations like this are really focusing on quantitative data, right? We're looking at numbers and we're looking at scores, but this website also just talks about how to prepare your child with, questions that you can ask while they're reading, strategies that you can help them with to persevere and problem solve in math and things like that. So it's helpful. You can look up here by resources by topic and by grade, and it can give you some great information. So the Understand the Score website is more than just CARC information for parents. It's got a lot of really great resources. At this time, I think we'll take any questions that you have. That's the end of our formal presentation.
Any questions from the board?
Since I sat through this, it's great, and I love it. I went through the process of most of it anyway, and it was just amazing to see how everything came together, and our team really breaking down the numbers to be able to put a presentation like this together. Anyone else like to say anything or ask any questions? Floor is open.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You get a piece.
I just want to make sure that we all acknowledge Kent and Janine for gathering all the information to present to the community. It's a lot of work, so thank you. They also have done this presentation, as just heard Amy say, for our administrative leadership team, and to turnkey that from the principals to the rest of the staff to be able to use this to inform instruction. As we receive the SAT data, the AP data, our results from CUSAC, we'll schedule additional meetings to share that with the community as well. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. All right, so we're right before we get to our superintendent's report. I have a couple of quick notes, just extending the conversation from the last meeting regarding the November 6th referendum vote. As we all know, it is on the ballot. It is a two-question referendum. The first question is going to cover all of the space needs that we have in the district for instructional space and getting our kids back into safe buildings. Question two would complete the original job or the original construction that we had talked about with multi-purpose spaces. Also, information sharing. The website on our Nutley's.org site, we do have our referendum camp that's been updated. Karen Greco, our Director of Communications, has been feeding that page with information. So if anybody has any questions or they want to go to that page for information and then have questions for us, you can forward them over to Karen. We would do our best to get the answers out to you. We're also planning to be at all the PTOs for the month of October, as well as setting up, hopefully, if we can arrange one day at the library for the public to come out that can't necessarily make our meetings or be at a PTO. And we're also going to try to schedule at least one meeting in the middle school between now and the vote on November 6th, just to bring everyone together on the final pieces of what we're moving forward with. And this way the community has the information that they need to make a decision and provide us the guidance that we need moving forward, okay? If you have any other questions with regard to the referendum, you're more than welcome to come up after we do our resolutions, and I will key everyone in when you can do that. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start off with Dr. Julie Glazer with her superintendent's report.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to all of you who participated in back-to-school nights at the elementary schools Tuesday, September 25th, and at the middle school on September 27th. Your consistent participation in your child's education is really what allows us to continue to partner together for growth. This Thursday, October 4th, is back-to-school night at Nutley High School, and we hope to have an equally big turnout. I do want to thank Ms. Egan and Mr. Walt Smith for leading our walker-a-thon last Friday night in honor of Mr. Walker. This Friday night, I would like to encourage you to participate in the Thriving Survivors Walk. I'm not sure that the community is aware, but our Educational Association, many of you here tonight, regularly holds fundraisers, not only for scholarships for our students, but also to support community initiatives like Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Relay for Life, and local causes. So thank you to all of our faculty and staff who do consistently contribute to the Nutley community in so very many ways. Also a shout out to our 6th grade Spring Garden and Lincoln staff, Ms. Ristal, Ms. LaGuardia, and our chaperoning parents who went to camp at Fairview Lakes last week. I was thrilled to be able to join this year. I think every student who participated had a memorable experience, hiking, doing team building activities. They even got to boat a little bit this year. I would love to be able to expand that opportunity to the whole 6th grade as part of our teaming and authentic middle school model. If we could just get our 6th graders all together over here at the middle school. Since I see that Zora is not with us this evening, I also want to thank the staff and administration at Nutley High School for a wonderful senior cruise last Friday night. I think a good time was had by all, and it was a good way to kick off the spirit activities. This week, the community will receive a letter regarding safety and security. This is going to include updated information for each of our buildings, the plans for Halloween. I know you just can't wait for that. And the process for adding to our safety and security staff. We've been actively collaborating with Chief Strumolo to be able to achieve the recommendations that we set forth. And I'm really very pleased with the large number of goals we've already accomplished. So I'm looking forward to having that shared with all of you. God bless you. Just a reminder that this Friday is a single session day for our staff professional learning. Nutley High School will be closed beginning this Friday at 1 o'clock through Monday for necessary repair to the auditorium ceiling. Everybody did receive communication about that Friday, and that is also on the district website if you have a need for more information. All of our programming, though, SAT test, the football game, all the other athletics and programs will still be happening as scheduled, just moved over here to the middle school. The Columbus Day Parade, highlight of Nutley, is Sunday, and the district is closed on Monday in honor of Columbus Day. During the remainder of October, the Board of Education and our administrative team, our cabinet, will have professional learning through New Jersey School Boards Association. We expect to have follow-up presentations related to our roles and responsibilities, and including our School Board Association representatives starting at the October 27th Board of Education meeting. And of course, that is in support of one of the board goals that they set for this year. So we're looking forward to sharing that with the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glazer. We're going to move on over to Mrs. Yeamans for our board secretary report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to let everyone know that the Washington School Secure Entrance project we are now finishing up punch list items with the architect and the contractor. And we are looking into options to install a curbing along the walkway parallel to Washington Avenue, as well as new railings for the stairs going down to Washington Avenue. The Board of Education has actively been funding reserve accounts over the past 6 years, and we've been using those funds to take care of items that we cannot fit into the regular annual school district budget. Some of the things we have done have been replacing sidewalks. We've replaced outside stairs at schools. We have put in new secure entrances. We have repaved parking lots. And on tonight's agenda, we have a resolution to approve the replacement of 2 boilers and repairing the 3rd boiler at Radcliffe School. That is also being funded with our maintenance reserve funds. It's been, considering the fact that the district did not have any maintenance reserve funds 6 years ago, I think we have been making great achievements and strides in securing our buildings and upgrading our facilities. We have a couple of staff events coming up this month. On October 19th, we are offering our annual health fair that is available to all staff. It is taking place at Nutley High School in the teacher's cafeteria from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on October 19th. And I encourage you all to register for the event. More information can be found on the main page of the district's website. And in conjunction with Walgreens Pharmacy, we're going to be offering the free flu shot clinic again this year. That will take place in each and every building. It will start on October 22nd at Radcliffe School. And a schedule will be going out tomorrow because they just finalized it today. So everyone will receive an email and you'll know the times and the locations. You can go to any one of the locations to get the flu shot. It does not just have to be in the building where you are assigned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Yeamans. Okay, we only have one committee report tonight, and we're going to have both Vice President, Ms. Russo, provide us the information on the finance meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a finance meeting on September 25th. Also in attendance was Joseph DeCaro, our architect. Mr. DeCaro discussed the architectural and engineering work that needs to be completed for the subdivision work and subsequent site approval and construction for the proposed parking lot at 45 Hillside Crescent. Lindy is recommending approval of the subdivision phase this evening. Mr. DeCaro also discussed options for adding a curb and new railings in front of Washington School. Cost proposals will be submitted to the district. Mr. Nicolette and Ms. Yeamans reviewed the high school auditorium ceiling removal scheduled for the weekend of October 5th and the weekend activity scheduling shifts to the middle school Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 16th.
Thank you, Ms. Russo. Okay, we now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Our board regulation 601 allows 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. The speakers may speak more than once, only after others wishing to speak on a topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as the chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name and address each and every time you address the board and sign with Mrs. Kukuza before you take the microphone. Will the first person wishing to be heard on any of the resolution items in tonight's agenda please step forward? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Balsamo, would you take academic, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that resolutions 1 and 2 as written. Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Mr. Kukuza.
Mr. Balsamo?
Yes.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Carnicello?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, would you take administration, please? Bless you.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I move administration resolution number 1.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Mr. Kukuza.
Mr. Balsamo?
Yes.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin? Yes. Mr. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Carnicello?
Yes. Mr. Klein, would you take finance resolutions, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I move finance resolutions 1 through 11 as written.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Balsamo?
Yes.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Carnicello?
Yes. Mr. Klein, would you just read out number 3 on the acceptance of donations?
Acceptance of donation, be it resolved that the Board of Education accept the following donations. $349.95, donation of XYZ division 1.03 printer from Anna Quinn to Anna Close School. And then for $5,850, donation to Radcliffe School, Hawaii UST. They acknowledged that at the PTO meeting, they spoke about that too, which I saw. I don't know anything about the answer, but I also didn't ask. And then a donation to the Nutley Board of Education of used file cabinets, office chairs, and desks from U.S. Security Services.
Thank you. And Mrs. Stanchek Martin, would you take personnel, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to move personnel resolution number 1 is written.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Mrs. Kukuza.
Mr. Balsamo?
Yes.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Carnicello?
Yes. Okay, in this section, we allow questions or comments on all school-related matters. Our regulation allows 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. As stated earlier, all statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, or participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name and address each and every time you address the board, and always sign with Ms. Kukuza before you take the microphone. First person wishing to be heard on any or all school-related matters can step forward. Seeing none. Okay, any old business to come before the board? Any new business to come before the board? I just wanted to take a quick moment here on new business to thank our coach, Steve DiGregorio, for providing access to some of our students to attend today's speech on economics by Governor Murphy. It was great to have our students see firsthand government at work, so thank you. Okay, whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12, Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss student matters, personnel, and property acquisition. Be it further resolved that the results of the discussion will be made public by inclusion on the agenda of subsequent meetings of the Board of Education, and whether reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. Can I have a motion to go into closed session? Second. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.